Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American evangelical church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Remember, if you're listening to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast platforms, let us invite you to join the live interactive recording most Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Evangelicalish YouTube channel. Now to this episode of Evangelical-ish.
Hello, everybody. It is a different time. We are coming to you. We're recording this at noon Eastern on a Monday. It's April Fool's Day.
I was just thinking we should say Happy Wednesday night. Oh, April Fools.
I know, it's actually light here, which feels amazing. I'm not going to lie. I feel like I have energy. I'm not like on my way down. I'm still on my way up. The afternoon nap time hasn't kicked in yet, which I never take naps, let's be real. But the need to want to take a nap hasn't kicked in yet.
Lori in the comments says she thought it was an April Fool's prank that we were going live in the morning. And
yeah, unfortunate that it happens to be April Fool's. I thought that too. I was like, people aren't going to believe this, but also this would be a really like stupid joke. Like, oh, we're going live. Ha ha. April Fool's.
We're not there.
Suckers. But here we are. It's not a joke. We're here. And the reason why we're here, if you're wondering, is that I'm gone Wednesday, and we had originally canceled it. Well, no, we booked Rocky for Wednesday, who's our guest, who we will bring out in just a second. And then there was just a miscommunication. It didn't get on the calendar. And then I was like, I'm actually going to be out of town. And then we were like, oh, shoot, but we scheduled Rocky and we really want to have Rocky on. And I was like, well, I'm still in town on Monday. So that's why.
Yeah.
That's
and
the
it's
reason.
Kind of a fun experiment. We might do more kind of pop-up lives at some point.
Yeah, honestly, I'm starting to the Wednesday nights. By the time Wednesday hits, I'm just a zombie. That's the most zombie that I am the whole week. And so it's probably not the best for anybody that I go live on a Wednesday night when I'm the most zombified. But
so are you saying you trough on Wednesday night and then you start to ramp up for the weekend? Is that how it
Yes, exactly. It's hump day. You're just lugging just over that hump.
I do feel bad for you because I know you're on East Coast time, so it's always much earlier for me.
Yes, that is true. But we will stay at Wednesdays for now, but just follow it along, and maybe we'll do more pop-ups. We'll see how this goes. I'm a fan of it so far.
Nothing sacred and holy written in stone for Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Pacific.
Yeah.
So
it's not our evangelicalish Sabbath or.
Oh, our friend Douglas says it's snowing in South Dakota. Wow, a fascist South Dakota, as he calls it. So, well, do we want to get to our guest, or did I interrupt your opening?
No, let's get to our guest. You want to interrupt our lovely guest who's been here before?
She's been with us before. She is the director of a movie called 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. Sharon Rocky Roggio she's a strong voice among the growing course of LGBTQIA plus Christians who want to cure the world of the damaging narrative of the word homosexuality being in the Bible. If you get a chance to see the movie, her father is in it and he's not affirming. It's just an amazing movie, and I hope everybody in the world gets to see it soon. Our guest today, Rocky Roggio. Rocky, how are you?
Hey, hi, Pastor Paul. Hey, April LaJoy. How are y'all?
We're good. I'm excited that you're here. I'm pretty sure we said it last time you were here. We're like, we need to have you back.
Yeah. And the movie wasn't available then. The movie's available now. So anybody who wants to see it, you can go to our website and rent it right now.
Oh, really? That's the biggest question I get about the movie all the time. So let's just get how do people see the movie right now?
Yeah, it's Easter Monday. It's April Fool's. It's a perfect day to sit down after this live and watch the film.
After this live. Oh, wow. By the way, in the comments, we have Clarice from Germany tuning in. Hi, Clarice. Yeah, we might get some other people from new locations. And by the way, a shout out, Rocky from South Philly.
Yes, that's exact. I tried to chat, but I guess I'm not connected to the YouTube or something. And I didn't want to accidentally get bumped off because I was going to comment on that That's where my nickname comes from. So for anybody who has seen the movie, my dad is in the movie, and the rumor is that my dad always wanted a boy. Spoiler alert, he has 4 girls, and I'm the closest to a boy he ever got. And he wanted to name his son Rocky. It's a South Philly, Italian or very Italian family.
From
And
Rocky
I don't know
Balboa, the
if
Rocky
that is
movies.
true or not, but then I adopted the name as kind of like a little bit of irony, I guess. That's a little ironic, but yeah. So,
Well, I know people are going to be
It's fun.
very excited that they can see the film. And sorry, my dog, our yard guy is outside, so my dog may join in the show a little bit. But let's first start with, how is the movie doing, and maybe tell people who haven't heard you on our show before how it kind of all came to be and how
yeah.
you got here.
So the movie with audiences is doing extremely well. People who see the film love the film, or maybe have been skeptical, or are just really overall impressed. I'm really impressed myself with the execution of the film. It's very hard to make a movie, and we had an amazing team, and I can't praise them enough, our editor and our writer, and just all the people who came to the table to help make the movie. So it's been received well, unfortunately, and we won 24 awards on the festival circuit. We've played at major film festivals. We've been all over the world. We've had thousands of people see the film, and we can't get distribution. We've had the top players in the industry watch it, and they're all like, it's a great film, but we can't help you. And so I don't know what that's about. That's also the industry right now for these types of documentaries. There was a IndieWire article that came out that just said these films are not moving. Streamers are making their own content. They're buying their own content. They're already programmed. They buy very few films. So that has something to do with it. And especially these films that they think are niche and social justice. Now, I'm like, this movie's about the Bible, and whether you're religious or not, like, you're impacted. And if you don't realize that, then you're not paying attention, especially
it is,
with
Rocky,
Christian
you're oppressed.
Nationalism
You're
in America.
oppressed.
Pardon?
You're oppressed. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Oppression.
Totally.
Persecution. No, that's surprising to me too, because I think, especially in an election year, and Christian nationalism is a huge topic right now, and one of their main frontline issues is LGBTQ issues, and they use the Bible to justify being against the LGBTQ community, and that's like a huge political talking point right now. So to me, it seems like this is not a niche topic at all.
I agree. And it's doing really well overseas. The UK loves our film. Canada has been amazing to us. We just had a HSED project organization working to help affirm LGBTQ identities all throughout Canada license our film, and they played it in all 4 provinces in about 20 different locations to fill theaters. It was really exciting. So, people are doing watch parties. You can contact us. You can watch it at home, and so we just wanted to make the movie available. We couldn't wait any longer. Now, the next step would be something like Amazon Prime, but you're still renting the movie, and then Amazon is getting the money, and the filmmakers, I still owe some of my producers money, we still have bills to pay. It's just an interesting thing. But anyway, I'm really proud of the film. I'm so grateful that it's working. People are really responding to it. So some of the feedback that we will get, people who may not have been affirming have taken a step back and realized maybe I'm doing this wrong. We hear that, which is just so encouraging.
Yeah.
And then people who have been hurt by the church, who maybe LGBTQ, who have accepted themselves as being queer, now they're completely, you can see the transformation after they watch the movie. They're like, wow, I never even thought that it wasn't a sin. And they're now released from all that shame and all the things that we've heard growing up in the church.
Yeah.
And so that's a really powerful thing as well. Now go ahead. Yeah.
When I first heard the premise of the movie, and I saw it on TikTok, and I was skeptical. I'm like, wait a second, that doesn't seem possible that homosexuality was added into the Bible. And surely Christianity has always been homophobic. And then I watched the film, and I'm like, oh, wait, now this really makes sense. And it caused me to do a lot of studying and learning. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is right. And look at how this happened and how damaging it is. And how did you come across this idea that homosexuality was added to the Bible in 1946, not in 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. So I was already on my own journey trying to affirm my identity with my non-affirming parents. I had gone back to church. I was dating a girl who told me she was a Christian, and I hadn't been to church in 20 plus years, honestly. So I went to this progressive church in Los Angeles, and it was, skinny jeans and everyone's all hip. The pastor's all hip, those types. And I really enjoyed the sermon, and I had a nice time. And so I kept going back, and, but little by little, you could peel the layers back and you start seeing, oh, this is not an affirming space. This is not a safe space. It's welcoming. And I didn't really even have that language. I was so far removed from church. I just, so I'm rediscovering all this stuff. Then I reread the Bible as an adult, and really started to push back and ask questions. Well, you can lead. Why can't I lead? Those kinds of things. And that led me to discover Kathy Boldock. Somebody told me you have to learn Kathy Boldock, and she's a phenomenal researcher. She's a wonderful advocate for the LGBTQ community, who is probably the most well-read in this topic as far as persecution of the queer community from the church. And so I binge watched Kathy Boldock. And 2 months prior, I'm like, I'm going to make a documentary on trying to, affirm my reality. I had no idea it was going to be the 1946 thing. So I watched Kathy Boldock, and she was phenomenal. And she was coming into town, into LA, the same weekend my parents were coming into town, my non-affirming parents. And so I was like, well, I already said I'm going to make a documentary. So I asked permission from the church. I asked permission from Kathy, my parents, and I just started filming. So literally what you see in the film is true. Like so I still didn't know about the 1946. I'm just like, I'm just gonna, I'm the troublemaker who, likes to ask questions. And so let's put it on camera. Mm-hmm. And so it was an 8-hour conference sitting next to my mom and my dad, listening to Kathy talk about patriarchy, penetration, and procreation for like 8 hours. Exactly. Very, very interesting day. But that was the day that they told us about the 1946 mistranslation. So they had this was 2018 of October. They had went to the archives in 2017, and they had just found Reverend David 9 months after. So like a month before I met them, they discovered who the man was who actually wrote the letter in 1959 challenging the translation committee. So I'm sitting in this conference and I'm like, what? Like this is a movie. The man is 89 years old. He's alive. He's a retired minister. He wrote this beautiful academic letter challenging the translation committee, giving us the historical document that is that tangible piece of evidence where this is not my opinion anymore. This isn't my feelings. This is a tangible mistake. And if we can go from there, what other conversations can we have? And so in executing the film, one of the things we really wanted to do, and I believe we succeeded in, is making a non-threatening, engaging, conversational piece that hopefully people will sit through so that we can really engage in a broader conversation. So that's how it all started. After I did learn of the 1946 mistranslation, of course, I had to get permission from Kathy and Ed to do the documentary. And that's a whole nother story because Kathy told me no. And then I had to woo Ed and woo Kathy for a little bit. But they said yes pretty shortly after. And then in 2019, January, we all went to Chicago and filmed Reverend David, that scene where he comes, spoiler alert, anybody who hasn't seen the movie, where he comes out on the stage and she announces him and the whole room explodes. That was the second thing we filmed. And that was the first time he came out publicly as a gay man. Because, as you can imagine, in the 50s, and when he wrote that letter, of course, he didn't share it with anybody. He would, it was just such a different time. But
for anybody that hasn't seen the film, David was he was a young seminary student, is that right? And so somebody in the chat is asking about what's significant about 1946, and it's when the Revised Standard Version of the Bible was written by a committee. They were the first ones ever to put the word homosexuality. Is that in any language the only when it went into the English translation of the RSV, that was the first time in any language that homosexuality was in?
Correct. And then it started to spread into other translations. Like, for example, we don't see the word homosexual in the German Bible, speaking of Germany, until 1983.
Yeah.
And it was Biblica who published that Bible, an American publishing company, and the Germans invented the word homosexual. You would think that if it were homosexuals, they would have put it in first.
What was the before it was changed to homosexual, what did it say?
Very good question, because the German used to say Knabenschänder, which means boy molester. And a lot of European Bibles would say boy molester. And
Mhm.
some of them would say a specific age group. The Norwegian Bible, it was boys ages 11 through 13 or something. It just is a really
Mhm.
specific age group, which was just interesting. So they're talking about pederasty. And that's what the assumption is, that that these are that it was a pederast relationship. But
Mhm.
those are just, and one of the things we say in the movie is, and the New Revised Standard Reversion Updated Edition make it clear that the Greek is unclear. And so if
Mhm.
anybody says they know exactly what they mean, it means they don't, because it's
Right.
never defined. And Kathy says that in the film. And so we go through why we know it's not a homosexual, which is a group of people. It's an act that has consequences on the other side. And so if we can just start from there,
Mhm.
so that's why, a lot of people would be like, they changed it from pedophile to homosexual. Well, no, they didn't. That's not the correct translation either. So there's a lot of misinformation around that, but it
Yeah.
is very confusing, because
Right.
some Bibles do say boy molester.
Well, now that you're saying,
Child destroyer. Yes. Oh, very good. Oh, yes. Okay.
Clarice in
Thank
the
you.
comments from
That's
Germany said that
Knabenschänder.
word means, the word you said, Kinderschänder,
Yeah.
means child destroyer.
well, now that
Yeah.
I'm thinking out loud, so correct me if I'm wrong, but when you read the scripture, like the newest translation that has homosexual in it, does the Bible actually have any verse that condemns pedophilia?
No.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm just making this connection. That seems like something that the Bible would clearly condemn at some point.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
But these kinds of practices were common. And when you think about it, the men would sleep with the young boys until they hit puberty. Well, not sleep with them; they would rape them, essentially. And it's always an act to someone else. There's always a penetrator and a penetrated, and it's always
Yeah.
a person of higher dominance that's doing the act. But they wouldn't do it to the girls, because then they would spoil the girls, and the girls needed to be virgins when they were married off.
Mm.
So it just makes
Oh,
perfect sense. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
why they
and
were doing this
Well,
to
and
each
they're
other.
marrying off girls at like 12.
Correct.
and even my rabbi friends, and this comes out in the film too, say the abomination passage in Leviticus is about men proclaiming their dominance over another man. Like if you conquered somebody in war, the men would have sex with the men of the conquered peoples as well, because to prove their dominance over them. And it
Yep.
was an admonition of not using sex on another man to prove your power over them.
Right. And then when you go to 2013 and the death penalty is there, according to Dan McClellan, the consensus is that
Love
that's
Dan.
yeah, right, totally. The scholarly consensus is that's a later addition, that it was added. And so he would have to be able to answer more onto that. But if you look at the verses there where it says, man shall not lie with male as he does with a female, for it's an abomination, both shall be put to death. The very next verse, it has, man shall not lie with animal as he does with a female, for it's abomination, both shall be put to death. And the Hebrew is exactly the same. And so we know the animal is not consenting. And the biggest question that we get, or I've seen people push back on us and say, the affirming position is so cruel, because why would the Malakoi, or the person who's being abused, get condemned too? Why would they not inherit the kingdom of God? Why would they be put to death if they're the victim? How cruel are we? And I'm like, it's in the Bible. Like, I mean, the animal didn't consent, and the reason why is, and now I'm switching between the Old Testament and the New Testament and some of the different things. So some of the stuff is heady, and I apologize if, switching back and forth, but they're both dealing with the same thing. And the idea is you have to purge the land from all of the impurity. So it doesn't matter. And it's then we was at Georgetown University recently, and a student asked this question. It was a very good question. And we started to talk about it. Then afterward, we were out to dinner, and somebody pointed out, this still goes on today with rape victims in India. they'll,
Mm.
they'll get killed, or in other cultures, like rape victims will get killed because they've shamed the family. So
That's awful.
it's so awful,
Yeah.
so we don't know why, but we know it's not a homosexual, there's something else
And
going on
it's
there.
it's like the selling the essayed daughter to her molester. In that culture, you're ruined as a person, and once that sex act happened, and so they did that. But what was really powerful and convincing for me in the movie is, and again, it goes back to what's significant about 1946. This group of men translated this version of the Bible, the Revised Standard Version, put homosexual in there. David, your star from the movie, then sends a letter to the head of that committee saying, "Hey, I think you guys got this wrong." And the head of the committee says, "Oh, you may be right. We'll do some research on this, but we can't change that edition of the Bible until 1961, I think it was." And
Yeah.
then, so in the meantime, then you have the NASB, the NIV, and the Living Bible all come out, and they all use that version of the RSV as their foundation. Did I get that correct? And when I heard that, I'm like, oh shit, now this makes sense.
Yeah. They were in a 10-year contract. They couldn't make any revisions. And none of the translation committees are talking to one another. They all want to have the next greatest Bible. There's no internet, so no one. And the interesting thing is that, when the RSV Bible came out, people were more concerned that they took the virginity of Mary away because they called her a young woman instead of a virgin. But that's more original to the Greek. They also took the deity of Christ away because when he was on the cross, they're like, surely this must be a son of a God. Again, more original to the Greek, but they changed it. It was the son of the God, and so people were just in an uproar, and they started calling it a communist Bible, and they just put all this scare on it. Nobody was even thinking of the homosexual. The only thing that we found in the archives, when I say we, Kathy and Ed, those fabulous people who did all the hard work, there were only 2 people that challenged the homosexual in 1 Corinthians 6:9. And they were both Canadians. We love Canada. No, they were definitely not Americans. And the letter gave us the answer of why they came up with the decision that they made. And then it also showed us a crack in the wall because they updated their translation. They changed it to sexual perverts. But the committees don't know this. So they just all use the RSV as their root text. And then they spread the word homosexual into multiple verses. It went into 6 different verses where it just doesn't belong.
Because then you see it. I think they added it to Romans 1 too.
They added it later to Romans 1. It was like in the 90s or something. It wasn't until later.
I think it's interesting too, because part of the problem with just homosexuality, like even just that word, there's so much misunderstanding in culture, but especially among like right-wing evangelicals. Like they don't understand that orientation is different than an act, because also if you're going to say that the Bible, based on even like the Old Testament, man should not lie with a man or whatever, which they take to condemn homosexuality, like that's still an act. And if you're going by acts, then it also condemns heterosexuality, because it also says like no fornication, and a heterosexual, but like that has nothing to do with your orientation.
Right. Yeah. They're not able to make that connection. And that's one of the very frustrating things about it, which is another reason why we wanted to make an empathetic, gracious movie to get people to hopefully watch it and hopefully get that click going. Because if we made, I'm so angry and these Christians are so bad to us, and, or a propagated film, everybody's crying. Could you imagine? I would never make that movie.
I actually think y'all did a really great job of being in the middle. Like you get your message, because the message speaks for itself, right? The message itself, I think, is affirming, but all you're presenting are facts. And and you present, your dad's in the film presenting an unaffirming position, and it's very well balanced. That I think like it's really good, because it can get those people that maybe have never considered the idea that, sexual orientation is not a sin, that homosexuality was not in the Bible, because of the way y'all did a really great job with the film. So
Thank
kudos
you.
all around.
Thank you. I mean, so I've already seen my dad shift, not in anywhere near affirming,
Mm.
but when I was younger and he wrote me that letter, he wrote the letter, spoiler alert again for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, because he really was concerned for my eternal soul. He really believed that homosexuals identifying as being homosexual would not inherit the kingdom of God. So as soon as he found out that I was a lesbian, you know, my mother and father both went to counseling for like they were mourning, like they had lost a daughter, you know?
Yeah.
And now and this is 20 years later, understands that you can be born with this, just like you can be born with a disability, and it's just awful that they even just you know what I mean? Like but at least they're moving, you know, like everybody's born with something and you have to pick up your cross and, you know, and I'm like, close.
To
But
piggyback on April's point, though, at times I thought you were too fair, and it is really a beautiful, bittersweet family story as well in the movie. But at times I've like, okay, I'm going to punch Sal in the face. I'm going to go through my TV screen right now and punch this guy because
oh, poor dad.
how can you say these things to your daughter? I mean, I am a
punch
father
him.
of a daughter, and I can't imagine.
You could just say some choice words.
Right.
We don't need to get violent. They're violent enough.
Some are asking about the movie. Let's say again, it's 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. And tell people again, Rocky, just here at the midpoint of the show, where they can find it.
1946themovie.com. There's a link. There's also links in all our bios on our socials at 1946 the movie, but you can rent it through Eventive. So
I have a friend who is a trans female, and she sent me a question for you that she says, I'm curious to know why she chose to end the movie the way she did without resolution or a challenge to change one's mind about how they think about the LGBTQ plus community. Rather, it gives a sense that still believing we're going to hell isn't hurtful. I'm not sure if you would agree that the film is that happens, but that's
I don't know how that came across that way, and sorry for that, but no, I mean, so the movie is we're never gonna changing somebody's mind is not my job. Providing good information and allowing people to do the work and process and then, you know, make the decision for themselves is my job. Otherwise, we're just propagating, you know. And then, you know, another reason why we wanted to put my dad in the film per se is we know we're not going to change everybody's mind, and that's okay. There's nothing we can do about that. But what we can do is, again, provide good information, and enough people will recognize it and move with us. And that's the goal. And so,
well, and I think
wanted to.
Sorry,
no, that's fine. No, you know, like, and I always say it's not a Hollywood ending, but it's a hopeful ending. So I do hope that you found hope in that, and whoever asked that question.
I think they had sent it. She had sent it to Paul.
She sent it to me
earlier. Yeah, and I think to piggyback off what you're saying, that I think if you had been too aggressive, I don't know if you would have changed people's minds, because I've noticed which maybe you can speak to this too, but people that start off like side X, or you know, where they believe just being homosexual is a sin, that you have to have deliverance in order to be saved. Those people, I don't think could even listen to what you had to say if you came out, you know, guns blazing and saying like, you're wrong and this is harmful, because people just double down if they feel, you know, and there's certain people that even if you come with all the grace in the world, they're not going to change their mind. But giving people a soft landing and just, you know, presenting the facts, you know, it's the kind of the same thing where you see people who are side B, or, you know, there's side B ministries, which are harmful in other ways. But for the people that are side X, I can see value in bringing people along. Because for me, like, I was side X and I had to be side B before I could be fully affirming. Like that, because there were people when I was side X that were like, you're harmful, blah, blah, blah. And it was just easier to tune it out, like, no, you can't tell me. Like, I know what it's just human
Yeah.
nature. You double down. So I don't think I think you did a good job in that. Because I think your audience isn't people who are already affirming. Or
No. Well,
you're
some of them, yeah, but
yeah.
correct. Yeah, it's their audience is all over the place.
Yeah.
And the side X people, now that they've had it before seeing the movie, we had hundreds, if not, newspaper articles. Somebody wrote a book about our movie from a 7-minute trailer on why our movie's wrong before it even came out, like
Oh, lovely.
TikToks, radio shows, sermons, and just telling us why we're wrong. So now they've seen the movie and they misrepresent our argument. They go straight. It's shocking, or it's actually not shocking. It's not surprising. It's sad, really, and it's heartbreaking to see grown men behave this way and just blatantly lie. And then another thing that they do is they bully the movie and or especially Ed publicly on social media. They call him a coward. They call him, this and that, because he doesn't want to debate them. We don't want to debate. We want a dialogue. We want to talk to people who are, not just trying to throw daggers at people and are actually worthy of our time to communicate together, and mature in that way. And I called one of them out on Twitter or something. And I was just like, it's interesting that you seem to always bully and attack Ed, but you never ask to debate any of the actual scholars in the film. There's plenty of scholars in the film that you can talk to, it's just, in my opinion, it supports our argument, because that behavior, they've got nowhere else to go except for bullying, So I think we're doing something right, but it still breaks my heart to see. And poor Ed. I love you, Ed, so much if you're watching.
You deserve better, Ed.
You deserve better.
Well, it's such an important film from that vantage point, that wonderful, sweet, loving people like your dad do things that are very harmful to their children because of this mistranslation of the Bible. And I hear pro-lifers say, well, no mother should ever want to, turn against her own child, which I think is a very terrible characterization. But this belief in homosexuality that evangelicals have turns them against their children. I had a friend of mine who was a pastor ask once, like, if what my opinion was on him allowing his queer daughter to come home for Christmas with her partner. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, if I don't care what my daughter does, if she wants to come home, she's coming home. I don't care. How can this be the thing that makes you turn against your daughter? It's horrifying.
Yeah, it's really sad. Some of the comments I see, like, what if your son becomes gay? And then the person will respond, I'll just disown them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why do people think this way?
When did they become homosexual, or when did they become heterosexual?
Yeah, we see that in the comments sections a lot too, so.
Yeah, when did you choose to be straight?
Yeah, exactly. But this isn't an issue that's going to be solved overnight. And just like making the movie, if you want to ever make a documentary, for anybody who is mad enough to decide that they're going to make a documentary, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And the fact that we finished in 4 years is pretty incredible with COVID and everything, being fully independent. But, it's the same. It's just.
That's a question I had about the movie, by the way.
Change minds. Go ahead.
Sorry to jump in, dear.
Oh, yeah.
How did you get the video of them finding the letter in the university archives?
So Ed and Kathy had been using their iPhones to document, and Ed had a friend with him, and he was already pre-thinking, we need to get this information out. So there's videos of Ed in front of the library saying that, which didn't make it in the film, like, we're outside of the Sterling Library, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, so they sent me all this footage of them at the archives, and it was like cinema gold. I literally
Mm.
cried. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the heart of the story. And then that's what gives us that Da Vinci Code. We're in the archives. They're reading the letters in real time. I mean, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. That was like that real big piece. So then I contact Yale University and we wanted to maybe go do some more filming. And I start talking to them about it. I'm really excited about this project. And I tell them that I have this footage. And the woman on the phone, she was like, you filmed already? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm like, they did research. And she's like, you can't use that footage. And my heart sunk, and then it was like letters from the university, like, they would allow us to come and film, but they needed to know our execution first, our distribution plan. I'm like, that's the chicken before the egg. Like, we don't even know.
Yeah.
This is an independent film. We'll be lucky if we get distribution. And now, spoiler alert, we can't get distribution. But, and so
Yes.
I
I'm going to
panicked.
name and claim it.
I know. I panicked. So then we ended up getting with UCLA that did our fair use legal and cleared our film for insurance.
Good.
And they were laughing. They're like, you can totally use all this footage. It's completely fair use. It's research. It's, whatever. And so there was no issue there. But I was like, could you imagine if we couldn't use that footage?
Oh my gosh. That's so much of the film too.
Was UCLA lawyers laughing behind the backs. Don't tell Yale University at Yale, just some, school rivalry.
Should I edit this out?
Edit it out. I know we're live.
So I'm so interested in, and it's the question we get a lot of, like, why isn't the movie in distribution in theaters and, God and Country, which, I mean, did it get into theaters because Rob Reiner put his name on it? How did they get that distribution?
Yeah, well, we did go to theaters. We had a theatrical release in December for a week. We did a week in New York, a week in LA, and a week in London. That qualified us for major awards. And we did that push with press to, again, try to get distribution on a streaming platform. If you look up God and Country, they did not get distribution. They are on Amazon Prime, and anybody can put their movie on Amazon Prime. We did submit our film to be put on Amazon Prime, so hopefully we'll be on at the end of the summer. We have to go through the process with them. And so I'm self-distributing everything. I did all the theater bookings. I did all the eventive, I've done it all. And now I'm doing the impact campaign with contacting churches and educational institutions and getting the movie out in libraries so that it's available for an educational tool. So it would be wonderful if I could find one person to help me in distribution. So we do have a couple companies that are looking at the film right now to help us, and then they can do things like get us into markets overseas. And so little by little, just do territories and hopefully get like some sort of North American distribution deal as well. But then they would also be able to help us with education, so I don't have to do all the work myself.
And maybe we could take it on the road.
Oh yeah. So we are going on the road. I just put together a proposal for a 16 conferences. It's a 35-day bus trip around the United States. It's really going to be a van because we can't afford a bus. And we want to provide, it's a 4-hour day conference with local community leaders, with Pastor Paul will give a talk on why Jesus is a bad evangelical. You can ask us about that later. And then we'll take a break. We'll watch the movie, do a Q&A, and then have a time of fellowship. And the goal of the bus tour is to organize, get out the vote, let people know how important their voice is, but also let people know how the Bible has been weaponized, not just against the LGBTQ community, but against things like women's rights. That Paul can speak more onto those things, and some of the other ways that we see Christian nationalism. Yeah, just really a blasphemy, being blasphemous to the Bible and to God, and giving people permission to rethink those things. So if anybody wants to help us with our bus tour, that's definitely going to take some financing, and I'll send you that proposal.
Yeah. If anybody knows a rich philanthropist.
Exactly.
And we're talking about going behind the Iron Curtain here, right? Like deep Alabama, Florida.
Yep. We've got, I think Pensacola's on the list, Sarasota. Ooh. We've got Baton Rouge,
Texas.
Frisco, Texas, We're
Oh,
going to
that's
go
where
to
my brothers live near.
Oklahoma. Okay, great. We're going to go to, Tennessee, Nashville, and Memphis. We've got Springfield, right?
Springfield, Missouri. Yep.
Missouri on the list.
The
Um,
Mecca of the Assemblies of God.
Yeah.
Temecula, California is on the list. So anyway, and then we got like Colorado Springs. So we're just going to do a loop, and the whole bus tour is planned out. I mean, I've got like to the days, to the hours, like literally. I know what we're doing on the road. I just hope we don't fight. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Y'all
we'll
need to
fight.
do a new documentary that's just you two on the road.
Us two on the road, that would be
Yeah.
hilarious.
Oh, we'll fight. We'll fight. For sure. You can't sit in a vehicle that long with somebody without at some point going,
Who
you really do
farted?
this
I'm
thing
just
that
kidding.
annoys the hell out of me. You know?
I just took it to the schoolyard. Yep.
I need to see some like carpool karaoke from y'all.
Oh, that would be
too.
fun. Yeah,
Some
for sure.
90s Christian
Hell
contemporary
yeah.
music.
Where's
Hell
the
yeah.
schedule listed? So we don't have anything listed publicly yet. The proposal has been written. We are getting it proofed this week by a couple more proofreaders. And then we have a graphics team doing some graphics for us. So I'll put that public probably on Friday. And then you can find it on our linked tree, which is also on our website. All of these things are linked on our website, but the linked tree has a whole bunch of links in there and useful information. That's where I put a lot of this stuff.
And I will put the 1946 website in the show notes once I upload this later.
How is relationship with Sal today? How has the movie and all of this impacted your relationship with your dad?
Well, everything is still pretty much the same. I was just there last week visiting my mom and my dad, and it was great. You know, we just had dinners, and we don't talk about these things, just like I said in the movie. And we just find other things to talk about, and just do relationship, which is all that I could really ask for. And honestly, I'm one of the lucky ones as we're discussing these issues and family issues. And so, and I had to make a decision to keep my family in my life so I can have those moments. And instead of looking back and saying, oh, I wish I knew my parents, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we've all of us have made a decision just to kind of not agitate and, just kind of do life, and then be an influence as best as we can.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't, there's things we still just don't talk about, like personal things in my life, and which is sad, but I've got my chosen family for that,
Yeah.
Well,
and there are parents out there who completely, cut their children out, or say, if you need to change before you come home. And, and I recognize that it takes work for both sides to continue relationship. So I think that's a testament to y'all's love for each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a good reminder that, people can be good people and mean well and have horrible beliefs or have really harmful beliefs, and that those beliefs can come in between relational issues, which is just sad. But, it's it just speaks to like the indoctrination of like, you choose your dogma over your children to have like that full embrace of, community, which is hard, but then also to love despite holding those beliefs too, like it's not an easy road. It's definitely the harder path to take.
It speaks to your character, and as much as I've threatened physical violence, and I'm kidding about that against your dad, just in my heart, malice in my heart at times, it speaks to his character that he still wants to have relationship, because so many, particularly queer kids have had to, and adult queer kids have had to end relationship with parents and such. So yeah, kudos to both of you.
Yeah, I mean, and I always say to the audience, this choice isn't for everyone, because I have to live with the fact every single day that they will vote against my human rights, my rights, and so that's a really hard pill to swallow. And I did just watch the movie God and Country last night, speaking of the documentary. And I don't think that they would sit down and watch that film. I don't think that that film does the same kind of job as ours to kind of
Kind of bridge a gap.
how do you guide people in this? You know what I mean? It's just because it's a really challenging, but they would probably see that film as exaggerated propaganda, things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just assuming.
And of course, my family would say, well, if Rob Reiner's behind it, well, then it's got to be bad. But by the way, I want to amend something I said. Not staying in relationship with your family doesn't show a lack of character, because sometimes it takes real courage to say,
To
I'm
walk
not going to
away.
be around people who think this of me.
Right. I agree. Yeah. So, the choice, we all need to come to that choice for ourselves. And it's not easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if there's anything there's also this willful ignorance on certain groups of people. Like we see, even if you are presented with facts, you can double down. Like we just saw this yesterday was Easter Sunday. And, Friday, on Good Friday, Joe Biden made that proclamation for Trans Day of Visibility, which is March 31st, which is Trans Visibility Day has been March 31st since 2009. And Joe Biden has made this exact same proclamation every March around this same time, his entire presidency. But this year, March 31st, also coincided with Easter. And you saw this uproar from evangelicals literally believing that Joe Biden was trying to cancel Easter, despite the fact that Joe Biden is a Christian and still made his usual Easter post where he specifically said Christ's resurrection and was wishing everyone a happy Easter. But they are just like, even presented with these facts, like, no, this is not persecution against Jesus. That it just took off like wildfire. And no matter,
it's so frustrating.
I know, it's like, this is not, y'all are mad for no reason.
It's actually Easter that was trying to cancel Trans Visibility Day.
Yes.
Easter is the pagan holiday that comes on the first Sunday after the first full moon of the vernal equinox. So
yeah. Oh man, what a mess.
It is a mess. And I hear people, Christians all the time, who, like I said, we were talking about earlier, they just need to put a label on something. And, kind of how the old line goes, I would amend it to say, if you've met one queer person, you've met one queer person. Everybody is different. And to try to slap a label on, well, you're gay, therefore you're this, and this is just such a simple, they just need such a simple way to look at the world, and it's so damaging.
Yeah.
And for me, like, even when I was, I guess, side B, or I don't know if I was ever completely side X, but I still would tell people, like, but I don't think how we treat gay people is how Jesus would have treated them. Even when my theology still believed that homosexuality was condemned in the Bible, it still hurt my heart that we, it says, take care of the outcast. And it seems like, no, we're the ones doing the casting out, not caring for the outcast. So I don't know how that doesn't move people's hearts.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you read just the story of Jesus and Jesus's teachings, that he would be far more likely to stand with the outcast than those who are casting them out. And it's like, I just don't think people read the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, they read it when it comes to homosexuality, not, being in there incorrectly. That one they read.
Yeah.
Well, they Google verses, I think. I don't think they actually read the Bible. They just Google the verses they need to affirm their position.
Yeah. Paul, do you have some evangelical cringe for us?
I do. Why don't we tell one more time, Rocky, where where they can get the movie and all the info about what you and your partner Jenna, not your business partner Jenna,
right,
are doing.
1946themovie.com, or on all socials at 1946themovie, and you can rent the film, and we'd really appreciate it. And then let us know what you think. You can send us a DM or email us at 1946themovieinfo@gmail.com. I do handle all the emails, so please give me some grace if it takes me a couple days to write back. But speaking of, while we're live, I am looking for help. We did get a grant, and I am able to hire someone for 6 months. I haven't cashed in the grant yet, but it's specifically to help me contact churches and educational institutions, and to answer the emails then, essentially, so starting the contacting and then helping me keep up with it. So if anybody wants to help me, it's a paying job. You can send me a DM or an email.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Evangelic Cringe, where we show what right-wing evangelicals are doing, and we live cringe on the air. You won't be able to see our reactions if you're listening to the pod, but this is one of our favorites, Sean Foyt,
I'm scared.
in the
Oh,
house.
That's why we get called. Well, you're Christian nationalists. You want the kingdom to be the government. Yes. You want God to come and overtake the government. Yes. You want Christians to be the only ones that, yes, we do. We wouldn't be a disciple of Jesus if we didn't believe that. We want God to be in control of everything. We want believers to be the ones writing the laws. Yes, guilty as charged.
You didn't tell me you were playing a horror movie.
oh my gosh. He is one of the ones who said that Joe Biden was trying to cancel the resurrection. So
Unbelievable.
what a
So much for freedom of religion and all of our neighbors that we're supposed to love and learn from.
That's the definition of saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
Right there.
I feel like I've seen him also try to be like Christian nationalism is just this new buzzword that liberals are using to discredit Christianity, but it's just Christianity. And then there he is being like, well, yeah, we do want to take over the government. Like, okay, well, then you're doing exactly what you're being accused of. And
7 mountain mandates, anyone?
I find him interesting. He came, our worship team brought him into our church, probably would have been 2014, something like that. He was doing these 24/7 things, 24 hours of worship in different churches. And so I met him at that time, and my skin was crawling just meeting him. And I told my team, that guy's never, ever, ever to come back here, ever. And
good for you.
There was something wrong with him at that time. And I think that's proven out.
He definitely gives off grifter vibes.
Yeah,
I mean, he sold t-shirts. There was that Rolling Stone article that came out about him that called him Jesus Christ super spreader when he was hosting all those worship quote unquote protests in the middle of the pandemic.
During COVID, yeah.
Yeah. And then he started selling t-shirts that said Jesus Christ super spreader. Like it was a joke.
Well, he ran for Congress up in Redding, California, where Bethel is up there, and said God had told him he was going to win, and he got crushed.
Oh, I didn't know he said God told him he was going to win.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So he should be stoned according to the literal Bible because he got it wrong. And a whole bunch of
Isn't that interesting how people really follow the Bible literally?
Because it's
Can you
prescriptive
imagine?
versus descriptive.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, well,
Mhm.
the Bible doesn't say that. Y'all
How
added that in.
How convenient.
neat how you can make the Bible say whatever you want it to say.
That's the thing. They're like, well, liberals just cherry pick the Bible. I'm like, literally everybody cherry picks the Bible. I don't know one person on earth that follows everything literally. We're just honest about it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, as I always say, you have to cherry pick the Bible because it contradicts itself. You know, we just came off the Easter weekend, and apparently when God wrote the Bible, he didn't remember in the book of John when he killed his son. You think you would remember that day, but he got the day wrong in John. So he's getting old and confused a little bit.
Well, that's only if you believe that God literally wrote the Bible.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're in the inerrancy crowd, then you have to tell me why God didn't know who found the tomb empty, and all of these things. So here is another. I'm not sure who this pastor is. He's on Kenneth Copeland's channel. Whoops. And he is talking about good old fascism and why it works.
Oh,
Not based upon fascism that Hitler was. I mean, that's not yes, he wanted pride in Germany again. They'd been decimated by the previous war. I mean, their inflation rate was astronomical. Now, that's what a bad leader can do, but imagine what a good leader could do with nationalism or even Christian nationalism. I mean, if Hitler can do that, bad guy, imagine what a good guy can do.
What is his point?
If you have Christian fascism,
Well, let's just test it out and see, right? Are we going to get a good guy or a bad guy? I mean, if they think Trump's a good guy, oh my gosh, we're in so much trouble.
They do think Trump's a good guy. That's the problem. They think he's God's chosen. It doesn't make any sense. It feels like that film is it Idiocracy that's just like we are living in two different realities. Like it's still wild to me. But I think one of the most dangerous and disingenuous parts of Christian nationalism in America is that they think they're just standing up for biblical truth and Christian values, but their Christian values are very specific, fundamental Christian values. That is just one way of interpreting scripture when there's literally thousands of different Christian denominations and different viewpoints. But it's just a very prideful and self-absorbed idea of the world. They think their version of Christianity is the only version of Christianity. So when they say Christian nationalism, what they really mean is white conservative evangelical, which is not Christianity worldwide.
Right.
and what they don't understand is this is history repeating itself. This has happened before. The Christian Church of Germany was pro-Hitler. Or at least they accommodated Hitler for their own benefit. And the America First movement originally was a pro-Nazi movement in the United States. It's like, yes, we need this type of government fascism to combat I don't guess they call it wokeness then, but the liberalness of Roosevelt. And it's just scary that people are like, oh yeah, we can get a good fascist this time and it could really work.
Right. And here's the thing, like you're eventually, even if you get a quote unquote good guy in to lead, you're not going to have that good guy forever. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the chances of that guy even staying good.
Yeah.
Of course it's a guy. It's patriarchy.
Let me finish with one that's a little bit lighter and will leave us on a little bit better note.
Yeah, a little less Hitler.
A little less Hitler, a little more Marjorie Taylor Greene, who
no.
You gotta love her, don't you?
The members are reminded to abide by decorum of the House.
That's Marjorie Taylor Greene in the chair.
The House will be in order.
Why is she in the chair?
The House will be in order.
Why was she in the chair? What was that from?
It's something on the House, not always, the speaker's not always there. And at times I think the speaker can appoint like a pro tem to oversee particular sessions.
How she's trying to get everyone to have decorum and they all just laugh at her. Like, you're one to talk. She's the one that brought like porn to that one. What didn't she showed like explicit videos
of Hunter Biden.
Yeah. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, it's a mess.
I just love it. Yeah, you're right. She says, remember we work in decorum, and they're all like just bust out laughing.
Do we, Marjorie? Oh man,
the irony. All right, Rocky Roggio of 1946, the movie. Excited to have a chance to road trip with you, and just excited that the movie's out there and people can see it, and it's just fabulous.
Thank you. I do want to answer one question really quickly from the chat. Somebody was asking, basically, prior to 1946 and the word homosexual, like wasn't there queer phobia before then and homophobia? Yes, of course. Homophobia has existed, our reality, for, this is part of the problem. Mm-hmm. The idea, though, is homosexuals are a group of people. The Bible's talking about acts. And so my response to that is, when you look at what's going on in the verses and in history, what they're doing is feminizing men. And the last thing you want to be as a man is a woman. And these are all, we see this kind of behavior, like the Malakoi being soft, being like a coward. That could be slang. That could be like, we still do that today. You're a sissy, you're a pussy, you're a pansy. So these men or boys really that are being used are now being called these, you're not holding up your position in society because you're a coward, you're soft.
Right.
So, that's my answer to that. Just really start to think about these things in that regard. And we also don't see any pastors using the Bible against queer people until the 70s. Kathy did a big study on a counseling pastoral magazine to see like when people started to really target and use the Bible. And it happened in the 70s. We can see the switch because prior to 73, homosexuals were considered mentally ill. So the counsel would be, they're sick, they need to see a psychiatrist. This is a head problem. Once society deemed us sane and well, that's when it became a moral issue in the church. And we can see the switch. So that's what we're trying to get people to understand. So I hope that helps answer that question.
And I think too, just society, even outside of Christianity, America is very patriarchal. Like women didn't even get the right to vote till 1920. And there's no place in a patriarchal society for gay people because, it's very man leads, woman submits. But if you have two men, who's submitting to whom and who's the breadwinner? It just becomes very confusing and there's no like place for that. So I think there's just societal reasons even outside of biblical ones.
Correct.
So homophobia has always existed, and the belief that there were multiple genders have always existed as well. In Judaism, there were some beliefs that held up to 8 different genders. So that has always been here too, and that people don't want to look at that and understand that is a big problem.
Yeah.
I heard one that really caught me this week. I heard somebody talking, who's the guy that dresses and wears the makeup and has the beard. I can't remember his name now. He's so interesting. But he was saying the other day, like, homophobia isn't hatred of gay people. It's hatred of women and femininity. And the belief that if a man wants to be a woman or wants to display femininity, he's choosing a second-class life, and therefore he's not worthy of honor because he's giving up his privilege of masculinity for a second-class status as a woman. And I thought, wow, that's really poignant. And I want Christian women to hear homophobia is a hatred of you and of what you are, and a belief that you're not fully worthy of honor and citizenship in the human race.
Well, we could start. We're out of time, but we could go into what South Korea is doing. The women are literally boycotting men because they're onto this. And then now I saw a TikTok where a person in America was like, "They just don't like you. They just don't like you. So we're just not going to date you." It's like, oh no. But they're seeing a decline in births and marriages and everything in South Korea. So yeah, this is it's a bigger thing than just homophobia.
And the incels are so upset about it.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, South Korea, I think 3 years ago, overturned a 60-year ban on abortion, a Christian nation of South Korea, which has a higher percentage of Christians than the US does.
Yeah.
They overturned an abortion ban 3 years ago and their reasoning was the ban didn't stop abortion from happening. It was still happening. All it did was made sure wealthy people had safe abortions and poor people had dangerous abortions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
All right,
we'll have
Rocky.
to save it for another time. You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me. And hopefully I'll see you on the road.
Yeah, we'll keep everyone posted on that as we get more information. Thanks for being here, Rocky, as
You're welcome.
always.
Yeah, for sure.
And thanks to everyone joining our pop-up live, and for those of you listening on the podcast. And who knows where we'll pop up next time, but we do know next week we'll be on our regular time on Wednesday night. Dana Hicks, the author of a book called The Knot, Knot. It's a book about the history of marriage and rethinking marriage in the common age. You're going to find it very, very interesting, and that'll be next week at our regular time.
Awesome. Well,
You're still awake, April.
I know. Look at me, and I still have energy. So, yeah. Hope everyone survives the eclipse. We'll be back as long as the rapture doesn't happen.
True.
Or we will probably be left behind, so we'll still be here. So,
all right, everybody, have a great day.
Bye.